And good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for coming out to Gear Show 2025, brought to you by Sony. We are here on the Airy main stage, and the live stream is brought to you by Sigma. Just a little housekeeping before we get started with our first panel. I just wanted to say we've kind of changed, those of you here in the building, we've changed out the layout just a little bit. So obviously the main stage is here in Studio B this year. Our vendors are going to be spread out throughout the building, but we really tried to make it so that they're more clustered together for you guys in Studio A this year. So be sure to make sure that you get some time going through there, ask tons of questions, engage with other folks here. It's a great networking opportunity. There's a lot of people here of all levels, from starting out to towards the end of their career and everything in between. So it's a great chance to get a lot of knowledge here for it. With that, we're also talking in our first setup here with higher education. But not only just higher education, but also education and how it pertains to media in general. So what is the path from getting younger folks in? What is the path for continuing education for those folks that are maybe trying to learn new technologies or new ways of kind of doing things as new platforms take off, as new technologies like virtual production or virtual reality or game engines or short form media, things like that kind of go. So that's what this panel is going to be about. I'm really looking forward to it. I'll start with introducing myself because I realized I haven't done that yet. My name is David Jeffries. I'm the current CEO of OHD Studios here. Thank you. Just in terms of how it relates to higher education, I'm a 2011 alumnus of Ohio University, Scripps College Communication, School of Media Arts and Studies. I try to do a lot of work where I give back into the different places that I can. So one of the places that OHD tends to do it is with our internship program. We really try to get a lot of folks in here. It's more of a workshop these days than it is anything else, where we kind of get 2 to 3 days a week where we get kind of students through. They are closed, unfortunately, for this year. But next year, feel free to kind of check us out on our website. For me, education is a really important piece of what we're doing. I think that in general, we should always be teaching for those of us who are professionals and also be learning all the time, right? So we will advance together better if we're always learning. So I think in general that kind of imbibes what higher education and education in general really strives to be doing, is to be lifelong learners. So with that, I'll stop talking, and I'm going to kick it down here to Brian. If I could just get everybody to introduce themselves, where they're from, and maybe just a little bit of background about what you do in your programs and how you got here.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Plow, and I'm on the faculty of the School of Media Arts and Studies. That's at Ohio University. We're part of the Scripps College of Communication. And my role down there is I teach all different forms of media production, but I specialize both in documentary production and narrative production. And I'm also engaged in virtual cinema production, so I teach Unreal Game Engine and all those types of associated technologies. And that's really what I like to do, is production, storytelling, and technology all kind of rolled into one.
Okay. Hello, my name is Michael Kaplan. I'm on the faculty at Ohio State University in the Department of Theater, Film, and Media Arts. I teach narrative film production, cinema editing theory, television theory, and documentary production. And we have a very robust program. I'm here with one of my associates, Scott, on the end there. He'll introduce himself. I'm also the faculty advisor for the campus film group, Mad Royal Film Society. It's a very active, integrated part of the film production community that we're very proud of. So it's nice to be here.
Hello, I'm Nicole Simmons. I'm the director of the Tom Hanks Center for Motion Pictures at Wright State University in Dayton. Our program turns 55 years old this year. We have a rich tradition of documentary and narrative film production, including 3 Oscar winners. So I teach screenwriting. I am a screenwriter. I have split my time between LA and Ohio for more than half my life now, but I'm very invested in success here in Ohio. I am so excited to see so many students in this audience. So I hope that we can have some productive conversations.
Good morning. My name is John Doherty. I'm the film commissioner here in Columbus and Central Ohio. Thank you, David, and the staff at OHD for having us. We hold workshops throughout the year. I encourage everybody to go to filmcolumbus.com, sign up for the newsletter. That's the best way to find out what's going on with our workshops. And super interested in trying to keep students here, stop the brain drain. Brian and I have talked about this for a couple of years, and how do we set up the system and the tax incentives and all that to create an atmosphere where students and people can stay here out of college, and looking forward to the conversation.
Hello. Hi, I'm Eric Rehnquist. I'm a senior video editor at Bartha Audiovisual here in Columbus. I've been a full-time video editor since the mid-'80s.
Did they have that back then?
Yeah. Well, it was Stone Knives and Bearskins back then. But, I'm very well versed in moving to a city cold and starting a career.
Good morning, and thanks to Ohio HD for having this event. My name is Jose Cardenas. I teach at Bowling Green State University. Went to school at Ohio State University, classmate of Scott here. And I teach documentary as well as narrative filmmaking at BG, and we also do multi-camera production as well.
And I've been introduced multiple times, but I'm Scott Spears, and I teach at Ohio State in the Department of Theater, Film, and Media Arts, teach video production 2, screenwriting, documentary production, and whatever's laying around. And he and I played on the same Little League baseball team together, so we are connected.
Valley Supply.
Woohoo, yeah, Valley Supply. I was a weak stick, strong arm. But I just want to encourage students to get involved locally. Don't expect it to be handed to you. Create your own stuff.
I think what's really kind of nice here is that we do have a nice breadth and depth between working professionals and educators here, as well as folks, obviously like John, that's kind of representing the industry kind of as a whole. So I just want to take a quick moment and swing over to the industry in terms of education. So if maybe some of my higher ed folks can talk a little bit about what some of the strengths and challenges are right now of teaching media in the industry right now. Like what are the things you're running up against?
Sure, I can speak first. Well, I mean, our challenges are a little bit unique because we're in the southeast corner of the state. We're kind of isolated a little bit, Ohio University, but in response to that, the way we compensate for that is what we call experiential education. So what we try to do, in addition to the nuts and bolts curriculum that all students are used to and what we expect out of a college or university program, we provide experiences that link our students to a professional environment or get them out of Athens. So that could be as extensive as our Ohio and LA program, which is a full semester study abroad type program in Los Angeles that's focused on entertainment development and production in Los Angeles. And that program's been going for about 10 years. And that's run by my colleague, Roger Cooper. Very successful. We run the South by Southwest experience. That's where 25, 30 OU students are right now as we speak at South by Southwest. And that's a professional networking seminar that we run that wraps itself around that core industry event. But we also have stuff that's local. So we have the Music Industry Summit, and our media arts students stream that summit, just like what's going on here, worldwide. And that's one of the top music industry summits in the nation right now, as well as the Nelsonville Music Festival, where we partner with WUB and Ohio HD now to produce the Sycamore Sessions, which is an Emmy Award-winning music performance show that takes place in that festival. So we have a lot of different programs that get our students out of the classroom and get them into a professional environment. And that's one of our strengths. It's what we do in order to meet that challenge of kind of being a little bit tucked away in the state and not having access to film production companies or media production companies on our front stoop. So that's one of the strengths that I think has defined the Scripps College of Communication, and that's our recipe, and that's what we're going with, and it's worked really well thus far.
One of the advantages that our program has existed for so long is that our alumni community is very, very deep and very, very engaged. So, we're in Dayton, so we're much like Brian. We face a few challenges, but we're close enough to Cincinnati that our students get a lot of opportunities on features when they come through. mean, the elephant in the room is that work is really, really tough right now.
So slow.
Yes, nothing is shooting. So
Everywhere.
yeah, it's true. So we are trying to help pivot with making more connections for them in the more commercial industrial area because they're always locally. They're always making local commercials or industrials or whatever. So there are some opportunities. We're also requiring our students as part of our curriculum to do more networking. So we're doing, hopefully some of them will be up here today. We're doing this assignment called 3x3 that I recommend all of you perhaps consider, which is where you have to go to 3 events in a semester and meet 3 new people and get their contact information. So that you can start to learn now, and then you build a database of where you met them, et cetera, so that you can follow up. What I'm noticing with students right now is we have a lot of crisis of confidence. And I think that particularly post-COVID, uh, students aren't as comfortable going up to a stranger somewhere like this and talking with them. And so that's the number one thing, is helping our students with some of those skills that I think some people take for granted. So we do include things in our curriculum now, like self-esteem building and how to deal with anxiety and all of these things that can be barriers to even getting out your front door in the first place.
You know, I think that's actually a really interesting point, because I was talking to a freelancer that works here in the Columbus market quite a bit yesterday, and he was, you know, he's longstanding in the industry. I would say of my generation, maybe a little older, who was echoing the same idea of having those reservations about coming out and talking to folks and having good conversations with people. And I do think that is a huge miss right now. So I really love the 3x3, and I think I could encourage that for anybody. You know, maybe it's not semesters, maybe for those of you who are working, it's quarters, right? So you do it in a business quarter where, you know, in the first quarter, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do a Film Columbus event, and I'm going to meet 3 people. The next one, it's going to be Gear Show, and the next one, you know, whatever it might be. But I do think that there's a lot of value in that. And I always say, you know, and Scott, who is around here as well, owner of the place, built the place, props to him. You know, he always says, you know, you work with who you know and who you trust, right?
Mhm.
So the only way you're going to get that is having good conversations and start to build that network. Sorry, I didn't mean to railroad
Oh, no,
that.
that's
So-
fine. I just wanted to sort of mention that, you know, we're fortunate because we've got 2 really highly acclaimed venues so close to our campus, the WEX and Gateway Cinema. And, you know, we have affiliate programs with them. We have coursework, which dictates students see current films in those environments. We have some strong grant programs for the students who can get support for putting together their senior productions and things of that nature. So there's outreach that is built into you know, our curriculum that touches on the current sort of waves of cinema production that are going on right now. And I think that's something that we're really proud of.
You want to do?
Oh, just
go for it.
networking,
Yeah.
networking. The person you're sitting next to in a class could be producing the next indie hit. So the people you know, put down your phones. That's the thing. When I went to film school, there were no phones. You sat and you talked about what you just saw, and you share, hey, what are you working on? What are you working on? 90+% of the work I've gotten and you will get is through who you know. Somebody will go,
100%.
I need
Like,
somebody to
yeah.
do X, hire Scott. I need somebody to do this, hire Jose, etc. Network. You've got to overcome your willpower to make something has to overcome your fear of talking to strangers.
Can I add one more thing? So not just networking with other students at your school, which I'll tell you, the people in my class I still work with to this day. It's networking with people at other schools. And I think that we need to create more opportunities for that to happen as well, because each of our schools teaches production in a little bit different way. So it exposes you to a broader base of knowledge and more people who are fighting the same fight that you're fighting.
Jose, I want to get to you in just a quick second here, but I do want to echo that as well, just as coming from the side of a house that is either a rental house or a lot of times we do a lot of crewing services for folks. That is a challenge that I'm facing right now is the disconnect between what I get coming out of the higher education and what the readiness is for set-based work. And I do think a lot of that is the decrease in crew sizes that we used to have. For a while, you'd have a much larger crew. You, for lack of a better term, could bury a new person in a crew 4 deep and they get a good opportunity to learn. But now, you might be going out on a crew that's only 7 or 8 deep on commercial work. So you tend to hire the people that you can get the job done with. So I do think finding ways to not only get universities to work across, but also to find working professionals to be able to kind of intermingle with that so that we can start to rebuild and really keep that workflow especially in smaller markets like Ohio where crew sizes maybe aren't as large, where we can kind of get that feeder system in there because there is work here. I mean, I think you mentioned that 100%, especially industrial, especially corporate, especially commercial. That work is here. It could be more, but it is here. And I do think that it's a great opportunity to have storytelling, right? So one of the things that, and I'm going off on a tangent, but I'm going to keep going down the road anyway. One of the things that when I was first getting out of school, I thought, I really wanted to be a director of photography for series television. I was thinking about making the jump to New York. That was kind of my thought. And what I realized was what I really enjoyed out of it was the quick turnover stuff and the fact that I could play with the same toys on another thing. I was a tech head, right? Like I wanted to play with the toys. And I realized I could play with all the toys on commercials, and then I could go home at the end of 10 or 12 hours, and tomorrow we'll do something different. And that was really exciting for me, but it wasn't something that was really ingrained in the educational process of what I was getting. I don't fault either side, right? So you want to go and you want to make movies, do it. Let's make more movies here. But also, if you want to go and make cool commercials and throw food through the air and run a robot, you can do that here too. So, Jose, sorry.
Yeah, thanks. Just sort of echo what everybody else was saying. Great points. I think we experienced some of the challenges too, post-COVID. One of the things that I do, and I noticed that about the communicating and networking, all that stuff, that I teach what's called a video practicum, where we go out and I find clients in the area that could use the skills of our students to create, and it's usually in the corporate, sometimes commercial, and sometimes documentary, but typically it's more of a corporate type atmosphere, which a lot of our students had not really thought about that type of work before, more in the narrative. But once they get in there, and they have to, one of the things they have to do is they have to meet with the client. I'm there too, and it's really getting out of that comfort zone. But once that ball gets rolling, they get really excited about doing that, and they create the project proposal, shooting script, plan, and all that stuff. We have some of the things that our students work with in the place that we have in the School of Media and Communication. We have a beautiful audio recording studio. We can do ADR in. A lot of the students have bands come in and do music videos, multi-camera video production studio, and we also have radio there as well. But yeah, they're slowly learning, and I think that's why we're here, is to continue that learning and to also network. And they're realizing, my students are realizing, I'm sure everybody else's are too, that the more they get in to do this, because I'm always like, you want to make movies, you want to make commercials, just, we have all the equipment here, is go out and do that stuff.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to just switch gears a little bit because you mentioned some of that technology stuff that you guys have going on, and honestly, it's a nice little pivot point to talk a little bit about the changes in emerging technologies and what we're seeing both in education and in the industry. And bang, I'm going to throw you under the bus here. Obviously, since you've been around since the '80s, you've seen a few technological changes, and obviously doing editorial for Bartha, you see probably a lot of corporate work as well. So, if I could throw you under the bus a little bit, what trends are you seeing in terms of content, where it's getting delivered, how it's getting delivered? What are people asking for?
Streaming. COVID really kicked off streaming for the industry. The company I work for, we do corporate stagings, and when COVID hit, that whole industry went ghost town, and we had to re-educate ourselves to be able to facilitate streaming, where you have, people that are 8 feet apart wearing masks in your studio, but they're streaming to the folks on the other side of the country. or Zoom or Skype.
That's how old you are, Skype?
Yeah, I know, I know.
Well, I did just see they may be shutting down. Oh, so.
Learning how to deal with that type of material, it was a whole different ball game, and really forced us to, pivot and learn. And it's still continuing that way. I mean, again, to sound old farty, but if you had a corporate video, you used to have to send a crew across the country to shoot an interview, or you would pick up a crew out in San Francisco.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah, it was. 99% of the time now, it's done shooting with the camera on their phone or on their laptop. So in terms of taking stuff like that and using current technology, AI upresing, using Topaz to take passable video and making it almost good. And then again, sometimes the footage you'll get is like, wow, that stuff really looks good. And so much of that, how was it lit? We've had situations where we would send out a lighting package, and it's nice to have somebody really setting it up and, trying to talk them through it. But, I would say in terms of where the industry is going, streaming, or even having a convention that has streaming incorporated into it. You'll have attendees that can't make it, but they have a good message to give that'll either be done live, or we do pre-records that get played back at the event. So does that answer anything?
No, I think it does. And, because I was talking to another vendor here last night as they were setting up, and one of the things that was mentioning was that they are seeing a lot in the streaming world. That a camera company that maybe traditionally did a lot in film, and so it does beg the question that I have of, like, how do we, prepare students and prepare working professionals for the massive amount of different outlets that are available, right? So you fast forward or rewind even, 10, 15 years ago, it was going to be broadcast, theatrical release, DVD, Blu-ray, end of list.
So I actually would peel that back a little bit and say that at the end of the day, if you don't have compelling storytelling, whether it be a commercial or a whatever, if you don't have compelling storytelling, the technology doesn't matter. So that is first and foremost where everybody has to understand the storytelling element of your discipline. Editors, cinematographers, I don't care what you do, it has to come back to storytelling. So we had Larry Scher came and did a workshop for us. And what I really appreciated that Larry said was that he sees a lot of filmmakers get anxious that they have to know every single piece of equipment that comes out, and the latest and the greatest and all of it. And he said, when I'm the DP, it's my job to know that. So if you're not the DP, but you can talk to me about story and you can give me some examples of what you want things to look like, I will get you there. So also know that really going down a rabbit hole in your area of interest is okay too.
Can I just add something in terms of technology? I find this to be sort of an interesting phenomenon. I was actually visiting Bing, and he showed me some of the new technology from Post. It was pretty impressive. And I thought about how there's sort of a battle in the classroom when faced with the technology that speaks to the student's ability to overcome technical problems. So, do you introduce something like Topaz to a student that allows them to fix problems that were shot in post? I'm sorry, in production, or do we sort of push them down the avenue that says, fix the problems where they started, and avoid the technologies at this point to see what kind of outcome you can get? without the benefit of AI per se.
Yeah, because failing is an important part of the process as well.
Yeah.
Well, and especially in a learning environment, failing can be so beneficial because you're not on the hook for someone's multi-$100,000, multi-million-dollar film. You're on the hook for probably something you're creating with your friends or for a class, where that's the chance that you get to go fail. And you know, one of the things the same freelancer I was talking to the other day was like, you know, the drive to make films has been beaten out of me at this point, you know, we kind of laughed about it, and then I got a little bit sad about it, you know, because what that says to me is that we are so focused on trying to go be the next thing, try to be better than what we were before and whatever it was, that we're not focused, we're not going back to story, and we're also not learning how to be better at what we're doing, right? We're just driving as fast as we possibly can. So I don't know, that's an interesting question, Michael, because you know, as being the tech head that I am, I'm like, throw all of the tools at everybody. But I do think that putting some guardrails up is probably part of the responsibility of us as mentors for those of us who are working professionals, and for higher ed as like, you know, we'll figure out how to do this without the shortcut, because then you'll understand how the shortcut works. So, you know, I didn't really want to go too far down the AI rabbit hole, but here we are. You know, I think AI is an interesting thing because we talk about it. You know, when people talk about AI, we immediately think generative AI, right? We think it's going to replace, you know, all this content that we're doing. It's the end of the world. But AI can be so many different things because AI is nothing more than machine learning, right? And so I'm going to pose it back to these guys over here, and Jose, if you want to kind of jump in here as well. Where do you guys draw the line with AI? You know, is generative versus topaz versus noise reduction versus, like, where is that acceptable and where is it not?
I'll just say typically, at least as far as OSU is concerned, there is a policy that is non-AI, pretty much across the board. And with that consideration, you know, I'll bring basically that restriction into the classroom. So I think it's important for the students to be cognizant of it as an element of technology. But you know, every syllabus that we put together, there is a statement that is included. You know, it's as I said, it is a battle because you don't know if a student has incorporated some support from artificial intelligence or not. You just have to hope that you know, you are building an appropriate environment for learning that separates the traditional from the new technologies.
You know, and I think one of the things that I fear a lot with that when we talk about doing limits on AI is, do we always know that the student knows that they are or are not using the services that are being provided to us? You know, I think about every time I open Google at this point and I type in a web search and I get Gemini, who really would like to tell me everything about my web search. You know, do we know that that's being integrated in some of that
Do
stuff?
you know the workaround for that?
You swear at it.
Yeah.
It doesn't like to have bad words at it. But yeah, but you know, so I think that's interesting, and I think for you guys, that is a challenge that you will continue to you guys to face. But I don't know, you guys want to continue?
Well, I
that?
think
Yeah.
it could be a great aid for pre-visualization if you want to create some storyboards. You don't have a storyboard artist, or either generating kind of an outline. The other day I said, I came up with an outline for a book. I said, I wrote one paragraph, said, give me 10 chapters. And it was classic, you know, by rote. But I go, I could use 50% of that, and then 50% of it's just crap. But it can be your assistant. It could be kind of an aid, like, hey, what about this? What about that? It can get you to think differently. So I won't throw it under the bus. As for generating shots for movies, I told my students, listen, if you want to do a big sci-fi thing and you want to generate some giant sci-fi city, run it by me, and that's okay. And after that, everything else has got to be yours.
Sure. And I'll address AI, but also technology writ large, because I'm in the virtual production space, and you know, we've adopted mantras that other people, you know, that generally have negative connotations, like the path of least resistance, right? You're always told, like, don't take that, don't take the easy way out. We embrace that. So we look at technology as being an ultimate accelerant. And there's this assumption that when you have more technology, you're kind of bypassing rigor. But it's kind of like this idea: the more technology you have, the more problems you're going to have too. Those problems don't go away; they just become different. And so I think that for students that want to get into that, it's just going to be a different set of problems. But the troubleshooting, which is ultimately a big part of like the meta education that we teach in the virtual production space, it's all about problem solving. It's all about troubleshooting. You can take those skills, you can apply them anywhere. You can go to work in the insurance industry if you want, and you'll still be a problem solver, and you'll still have a place at the table. So those types of things. We had the CIA come and tour our facilities a few months ago. And
Are you allowed to say that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, I didn't know they were the CIA until after they left,
Of course you did.
which was creepy. But then it made sense to me. They're looking for people with problem-solving skills who are comfortable in a tech-rich environment. And so, again, what we're teaching is like specific to this technology, but the takeaways are so much bigger than that. And I tell students, if you're going to use AI, just be honest about it, right? And then that creates a conversation in the classroom between me and that student about, what was assistive and what was theirs. Where's that fuzzy line? Nobody knows where the line is, right? And also, I will say this: Forbes list of top job skills through 2030, it is skills with assistive technology. So that's AI. So, we worry about, okay, is this going to replace this job? Is this going to replace this job? If it's going to replace your job, you've got to get on that. You've got to understand how it's going to replace your job, and then put yourself in line for the job that it's going to create. That's the way that I kind of push my students to embrace technology, and AI is just part of that grand menu of technology.
Well, and the other thing too that I think we haven't been talking about as much is one of the skill sets that's going to be a commodity is learning to recognize what is AI and what's not, because people are already using it, bad actors are already using it for a variety of ways. So we are in very close proximity to the Air Force Base, and some of our alums go on to work at the base. And our dean has made it very clear that if we teach any AI class, that will get funded immediately, in part because the base is looking for folks who know it in different ways.
When I added on that a little bit. Oh, no. I'll borrow yours. Thank you. Especially with Brian, I was fortunate to have met him last year and visited his place, and great place. And I was interested because with the LED volume, so I had done this past year some tests and experimenting with View 1 system, hoping that BG will sort of move into that sometime. But the backgrounds that I was using were AI generated, because I was into set building or anything like that, and that is obviously a great skill. What I was working on with my class was lighting, and I wanted a background and to light the foreground and other elements to work with it. And with the time of a class time, I thought it was great. So, I embrace it too. I think it's incredible. And some of the other comments were made too about AI. I don't really have a lot of things with that have been problematic with it. I think BG is still working on some of the more policy on it. But I would agree, like, if you're going to use it, just be upfront and honest with that.
Cool. I think we could talk about AI for a very, very long time. But one of the things about the higher education panel, and John, I may kind of key you in on this one, but I really want to switch gears and talk about, okay, so we've got higher education, and honestly, we've got all the way down, because we actually see a few high school tours come through here pretty often. So we have the feeder program from a high school student into the higher education being either university or apprentice, right into that, some kind of continued education, and then into the working professional, right? So John is great about putting together some different kind of workshops and things, and we've certainly hosted those here, and so thank you. But one of the things that I want to just open up the conversation about is what things should we be doing as a collective, thinking about that entire pipeline to be really productive in not only training the next media professionals, but also then keeping the professionals working in the places that they want to be working, whether that is LA, New York, international, or right here in Ohio.
Brian and I-
Internships. Oops.
Oh,
Internships.
Scott, Brian and I have talked about this ad nauseum. And what we talk about is educating legislators, and I know all of a sudden it gets really boring, but educating legislators on the industry and the economic impact that it has. It has a massive economic impact. They're blue collar jobs. They're great jobs. They're well paying jobs for crew. And educating those legislators on it's not about lining the pockets of already wealthy individuals out of Hollywood. That's not what this is. These are real jobs for all of you that want to work on a crew, and that's kind of where I step in, is talking to legislators, going over to the State House all the time, talking to them and telling them how important it is, and trying to increase that tax incentive so that more productions come here. And locally, we started last year the Columbus Motion Picture Incentive, which is a local incentive. At the state level, minimum spend is $300,000 to get that incentive. At local level here in Franklin County, you can get an incentive if you spend $150. So we've lowered that threshold. We're going to try and lower it more. We're going to try and pump more money into that incentive. But yeah. But I encourage you, to just spread the word in your everyday talking to whoever it is. Go home at Thanksgiving and tell your parents that this is a great industry and it can create jobs, and that's what we're doing and trying to do anyway. Hope that answers a little bit of the
No,
question.
I think that's interesting too, because it's, again, thinking back a few years ago at this point, when I was thinking about it, we didn't talk much about the business of media, right? Nobody told me how to generate an invoice, or that I was going to get taxed, self-employment tax, or like that wasn't part of the education series on that. So, it's technically, there's so much to learn between the time that you turn 18 and the time that you want to enter a professional workforce, right? Whether that's 18 in a day, or that's 18 plus 4 years, or that's 18 plus for some of us, a whole career and then change career, right? So I guess my question is, what things could we be doing? Just open this up. Which people should be doing what teaching, right? So is it the university's responsibility to teach the business side of it? Is it the individual's responsibility to go out and learn it? Is it someone like a rental house responsibility to host workshops for that kind of stuff? Like, where does people see that?
Well, I just want to say, in that regard, I suppose you have to look at what exactly is the responsibility of the university, and to what degree they need to sort of bring the teaching up to the specific level. So, do you go over that line to the more intricate, nuanced areas of production, or do you bring it back to the traditional kinds of things that we would be teaching in the film and video production environment?
What do you mean? Can you-
Well,
like the more intricate.
yeah, I mean, okay, I teach post-production, but it's theory. The students don't learn how to work a nonlinear editor, specifically because they may go out into the industry and they may find themselves working in a production house that uses Media Composer or Premiere or one of the others. So the benefit of holding back is that I can teach more information about post-production theory, prepare them conceptually for ideas that they're going to be sort of putting forth in the industry, and then when they get out there, yes, they may have to train a little bit more on that specific nonlinear editor, but they'll find themselves in an environment where they can learn that. So it's sort of like, where does that line go in terms of how much information you want to impart to the students? what is the responsibility?
David, I think too that is the question kind of like who's responsible for teaching those? I think it should fall on a lot of the individual too. It's like, those soft skills, going out there and meeting people, it's kind of up to you to really learn it. As the film commission in the workshops that we run, we're going to teach you the basics, but it's really up to you to really go out and learn it and do it. You have to do it. You just, hey, what's the best way to learn to make how to make a movie? Make one, right?
Right. I mean, my students aren't going to learn montage,
Yeah.
right, if they go to a production house and start editing. But I want them to know that, so I'm going to teach that to them, and then they can go out there and they can then hone their skills on a more technical level.
Yep, that's great.
And I would even flip that a little bit. We really try to tap into what our students want. We're fortunate, our program is, we have usually around 100 students in our whole program. So we're able to be a little bit more nimble. For example, this year, we added an After Effects class that we never had because we heard a lot of feedback that students were interested in that. In terms of these other skills, building a resume and doing all of that, we have that mostly because of my, sort of villain origin story. Because when I was at Wright State, my thesis film won a Sundance Award. Nobody taught me how to take a meeting. Nobody taught me what I needed to have prepped before I went to the festival. So I got a lot of opportunities out of that, a lot of phone calls, but I didn't know how to do any of that. So I vowed that that would never happen to another student. So we do teach resumes. Brian and I have started doing teacher exchange. Professional development is one of my areas of expertise. So I went down and talked to his students about that. We don't teach Unreal Engine. Brian came to our school and did a presentation on Unreal Engine for our students. So I think that that is also really important, is building coalitions and sharing resources, because none of the schools have money. But we have a lot of knowledge. So but I think it depends on your student body and what they're interested in learning and what they want to do when they get out. But the face of students is very different. When I came into school, everybody's like, I'm going to be Spielberg and I'm going to make my own movies and da 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 da. And now they're like, I have to pay off student loans. I have to get a job when I graduate. So it's very different.
100%. So I know that we're running a little low on time, so I do want to just kind of open it up a little bit to the room. If anybody has any questions or thoughts that they kind of want the panel to respond to. Yeah, back there. Yeah, just repeat the question just so I can get it. So what are the advantages or disadvantages of higher ed versus do-it-yourself?
That's a you question. Honestly, it's what you want to do and what you bring to it. If you've already got the skill set, and there's this thing called YouTube University, but what you do get out of film school is a built-in network. And Jose and I can talk about that all day. One guy I went to, my friend Jay, I've shot 7 or 8 feature films for him. So there's a network there, and there's the people around you that you get to know, and then you build a crew, and you go, oh, I can trust that person, I can trust that person. So it's what you bring to it, and if you are a self-motivated person, maybe school isn't for you.
Can I just add and tack on to what Scott was saying? Yes, networking, very important. There's the benefit of a traditional film and video, just education, theory and history, which may not seem relevant when you're walking into an industrial set or something like that, but it will impact your decisions. So if you find yourself working independently and you're fortunate enough to make your own film, those kinds of influences will reveal themselves later on. And that isn't something that necessarily you're going to find on YouTube or something like that.
And understanding history of film production, a funny Hollywood story. A friend of mine producing a show for CBS, they got a new intern on the show. Her name was Malia Obama. And so they're sitting in a room, and Spielberg is the executive producer, shows up to meet the President of the United States coming in, Barack Obama, and the plane's delayed 45 minutes. So what do you think they're going to talk in that room? Oh, hey, have you seen this movie? And hey, you seen Rashomon? No. You seen Citizen Kane? No. Well, after a while, you're going to look like an idiot. So that's what you do get out of film school, is you learn history, you learn the roots of where you come from, the art form you come from.
And I think that that's a really important point. Our program requires a lot of history and theory. And I hear increasingly more grumbling from students. I just want to go shoot something. I don't know why I have to need this, blah, blah, blah. But I always tell them this story. Hannah Beekler, who won the Oscar for Black Panther, she's a production designer. She went through our program. When she was interviewing with Ryan Coogler for Fruitvale Station, he brought up an obscure movie from the 1930s, and she was the only one who interviewed who was able to talk to him about that movie because she saw it in film school. So these skills are important as well. So yes, anybody can go out and pick up a camera and make a movie. That has been true since the beginning of time. The question of whether film school is important has always been a question. And I think somebody down here said it's personal choice for sure. But there's so much that you get out of film school that you won't get with going out and just doing it. Not that you shouldn't. You should still go out and just do it.
And we need to keep our jobs, so
Yeah.
that's really the main thing.
Let's boil it down to what really matters.
Yeah, right here.
With the screenwriting and stuff, what is like the best way to really hone your craft other than just like working on it? Because I have like written a few scripts like by myself, and I'm never really able to tell the quality apart of either of them. So how do you like know like if you're going in the right direction or not?
Well, I would network with other screenwriters.
Yes.
And create an exchange. Say, hey, I'll read yours, you read mine. Now, don't hand somebody a 140-page script and they give you the 5-page script. So, yeah, just get a network of screenwriters that you know, and they can give you critiques. And don't give it to your mother because you go, oh, this is all wonderful. But give it to somebody who's got some experience. There are contests you could enter also, and then there's professional feedback. I think about half of it's a scam. They're going to tell you it's great, so they can rewrite a second draft. They can tell you that draft's great, but et cetera. But I would talk to peers.
I think that part of your question is you are never going to know if it's good or if it's done. I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I still finish a script and go, oh, God, this is garbage. But take classes, and not just screenwriting classes, take creative writing classes, because those core skills of storytelling are universal, and that's where you need to get better. And then you'll find your peers who you can start a writing group with and will give you that feedback. The other thing about film school is it teaches you how to critique other people. And that's a super important skill
And
for
how to
all of
take
you to have.
feedback.
And how to take feedback, 100%.
And two, kind of to Scott's point a little bit too, read other scripts.
Mhm.
There are endless, you can find any script from any movie from any period in time online. Read those scripts, and that really will help hone your skill for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, here comes the microphone.
So outside of just like Ohio, like where you have the Columbus film website where you could like find where each activities are. So if you're just like starting at like a random city or something, like how would you use the internet? Like what would you like kind of like have to search up to find opportunities to work and stuff?
Yeah, well, going back to filmcolumbus.com, that's a great place to sign up for a newsletter and find that out. But Dayton has a film commission, Cincinnati, Cleveland.
Any production city is going to have a film commission.
I would
Yeah.
also say go find a rental house.
Yeah,
They're going to know every
Yes.
production player, period. So,
But it all goes back to you got to network. And
those soft skills are so important.
yes, and I will tell you as an old, You have to be on Facebook because there are a lot of jobs because people who are hiring are olds.
The people, yeah, 100%. The people that learn how to write an email, learn how to use
Yes.
Facebook.
Yes.
Those are the people that are hiring.
David,
you.
that's a really great point. I want to touch on that. You know, I get emails, as you can imagine, often from people looking for work. Learn how to write an email and say hello, not
and
just
follow directions.
yes, and not just hi, I'm looking for a job. Can you help me? With no like sign off. No, please, you have to learn how to communicate and learn how to send an email and check your email. It's very
Quickly.
yes.
It's usually
Respond
first
quickly.
come, first serve.
It is,
for
100%.
jobs. Yeah.
There are jobs that, you know, if you don't respond in an hour, they've gone on to somebody
100%.
else. So
Yeah.
check your
Link-
email. Get an email address that's not an edu email, not
Yep.
you know, get a Gmail, just whatever it is. But because you're going to grow out of that edu email.
That is your name.
Yes.
Don't be clever with your email address and
Not
get
the
on
gr-
LinkedIn.
The greatest director
another
at
good one.
gmail.com. No.
Yeah.
You know.
12.
Yeah, 12. 3012.
2012, yeah.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah, I've got one right here.
Okay, I can't project quite as much. You guys touched on it a little bit, but what kind of, other than YouTube University, what kind of resources would you recommend for people who are trying to elevate their skills in a non-traditional way other than school?
Actually,
Are there any valuable resources that
Oh.
maybe were touched on or that you could expand on more?
I'll hop on this one. Aside from Film Columbus and the workshops that happen within the communities, there is an entire room full of vendors there who would love to tell you about their products and the people that are working with them and how to use them. And like, I'm serious, like you can learn so much from the vendors of the people that are making the technology for the tech positions. For the softer skill stuff, it just goes back to networking. It doesn't matter the event you go to. You could go to the bar and talk to somebody, or you can come to an event and talk to somebody, or you can go to lunch with somebody, just pick up the phone and say, hey, can I go buy you a cup of coffee? The number of people that I will randomly just go out with because they said, hey, David, I know nothing about it. I've just moved back to Columbus. I was in XYZ city forever. I'm trying to get my feet wet here. You want to go get a cup of coffee? Sure.
Look
I'll give
for-
you 20 minutes.
And look for associations too, like Cincinnati has Women in Film Cincinnati. It's not just limited to women. They do a lot of, I've done resume workshops for them, but they do mixers and things like that. But even, this is gonna just sound so 1950s, but like Rotary and stuff in your local area helps you network with business people.
Are you specifically talking about formal like education that's outside of the university environment, like Moviola Digital and things like that, where you can take classes?
I was kind of following up on the student question about like what can they use the cause and finding and sustaining or having a sustainable period of growth outside.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that would be something that would, I think, be really valuable to look into something. I mean, if you can, those tend to be expensive. But
They do
courses-
tend to be expensive. They also don't
Yeah.
need to be, though. So one of the things that I often say as I'm going to put my rental house hat on for a second. I have said, and I'm openly saying, and I'm saying it right now loud and clear, if there is something you want to come learn, and it is in our inventory, call me, set up a time, we will walk you through it.
That's great.
I mean, that is
That's
like
great.
that.
That's
you know,
invaluable.
Selfishly, I would like you to rent it later. But also, the more, and this goes back to what I said at the very beginning, education is the root of us being better. It's better for us being in a society, it's better for us being filmmakers, it's better for us being in media, it's better for us all around if we are always learning. So please come learn with us.
Columbus has the Mid-Ohio Filmmakers Association. There's also the 48-hour film project where it's grueling, but you can make some really good connections. And there's winter film that comes out of Cincinnati that you can also do do crews here. So there's all kinds of ways to networking, and then it gives you it's like, oh, hardest part is putting the crew together. And so boom, you do one of those contests, there's a crew.
There's also professional organizations that have student memberships to them that offer very good workshops. I'm a member of the Society of Camera Operators, and they have student memberships, and a lot of events that they hold are free to students. So those are great opportunities for you as well.
I think Film Independent out of LA. There's a place called the Gotham, which is out of New York City, which coincidentally the executive director of the Gotham is from Columbus, Jeff Sharp. So look up those things for sure. The Gotham Film Independent are great.
Yeah,
like
the
Jose
the
said.
Film Academy has the Academy Gold program. We have an alum who works on that. That's a great opportunity. The TV Academy has 3 different internships that are all paid. So those are great resources as well.
You know, and I'm not a union member myself, but I will go ahead and plug IATSE. They're another great resource for especially if you're going to think about getting in on a real film set. Like, chances are it's going to be a union show. I would reach out to some of those union members and union leadership to see what opportunities you can do. They do quite a bit of training, and I don't know how much of it's open because, again, I'm not personally a member, but I do think that they are in general thinking about trying to protecting you as a worker, protecting you as the idea of you know being able to have good wages and keeping you safe, which is the most important thing that you could do on any set. So
And getting some certifications too, like find out what the area, the people who represent what you want to do. For example, 209 covers a whole lot of different things. In Ohio,
pretty much everything except camera.
yes. And so one of their criteria for joining is you have to have an OSHA certification. That's something you can just do on your own, and then that goes on your resume.
Yeah, in the back.
Guess we're doing microphones. Thank you, first of all. Thank you, everyone, of course. From the perspective of somebody who is formerly a student in the space and then now is teaching a new generation of students, I encounter a lot of resistance with the current student for learning things the old way. And I hear from the panel a lot of, they got to know problem solving, they got to know problem solving. And in my mind, that's, and there's an equal sign next to that that says signal flow. But they want to use new technology. They want to do things the new way. And the way that I was taught signal flow was obviously in an analog environment. And so how do you navigate that conversation with students to say, hey, you may not use this technology on a gig, but you'll use these skills to troubleshoot anything you encounter? For instance, like in the audio space, like plugins imitate the analog equivalents where you can actually patch things in, turn knobs, things like that. So are you, I guess, do you experience that with students, and how do you navigate that? How do you shape your curriculum to get them core level signal flow and problem solving while still keeping it balanced with, hey, here's what's current?
Well, in terms of like a technologized environment, I'll speak for Unreal. For like a 46-year-old to jump into something that cognitively intense, it's like my neural pathways blew out a long time ago. So, but one thing I found, and this is really interesting because when I began that journey 3 years ago, I just want to point out Meg Sharp over here. She began that journey with me, and now she's sitting in this seat running that. And what it really is about results. And I think for any, and one thing that assisted me that actually kept me in the game, I wasn't able to keep up with Meg, but I was close, and that was because of 20 years of physical film production, including starting in celluloid. There's always an analog, exactly what you're talking about with the plugin. And that analog, like back and forth, so for example, lighting in Unreal, all of the same metrics are a physical light that you would handle in reality. And that opens up a conversation about, hey, this is the new technology way of doing it, but this is how it was done in the past. And so understanding those things become really important for taking something like lighting in Unreal and running with it. And so those new skills always have a footprint in the past. And those conversations, as a strategist, as an educational strategist, you have to kind of predict where those conversations can be put into your curriculum and then have them intentionally. And I think that allows you to embrace new technology, but still have that idea, plant that seed that's like, okay, this came from this, and you'll find that students then go down that rabbit hole of learning, physical signal flow in order to replicate that plugin. That happens all the time. And so I think that's what I would add there, or what I would suggest.
How long has 3-point lighting been taught, right?
I only teach it long enough to like teach you, okay, teach it and then as a starting point, and then break those rules,
Right, but it's just something that I think is just part of the natural evolution of film and video production, is to start at that point, right? So it's built into your syllabus. It's going to be there. And if you can then maneuver the student into understanding how that's going to be applied in a different environment, that's great. But those core ideas still need to be imparted to the students. There's just no question about it. In terms of lighting, in terms of photography, in terms of exposure, and if they are present there, and the students realize that those core elements are going to get them in a place where they'll have a greater understanding of production across the board, then perhaps they'll be more in tune to learning them.
The technology is always going to change. It's always going to be something new, and you're going to go, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get this. This scares me. I've had to make the jump from multiple nonlinear editing systems, and I remember some years ago, I got a call from Ohio HD. Hey, could you come over here and take a swing at an edit? But we're DaVinci Resolve. I was Premiere. I spent a couple hours. I changed my keyboard set. Did fine, I hope.
I left it.
And regarding your question, I remember audio work, parametric, graphic equalizers with knobs. Now you turn dials. Same concept. It goes to what Michael was talking about, understanding theory and how this change is going to affect this.
I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of this. I think it's just the very tip of the iceberg of this conversation of how do we continue to grow this educational pipeline, kind of in a new order of how we do things in media. Especially as all these technologies, all of these platforms continue to change. A resounding thing that I hear here, just to kind of echo as we wrap up, network, and you're in a great place to do it right now. Soft skills are everything, and who you know is going to be your probably your pathway to your next gig. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much. Gear Show 2025 is going to continue throughout the day here. We've got a lot more panels coming down the line. Feel free to check out some of the vendors over in Studio A. And for those of you on the live stream, we'll have some meet and greets with them for you later. So we'll see you back here in a bit. Thanks.
Welcome out to the OHD Gear Show 2025. We are super happy to be here with our event sponsor, Sony Cinema, and our good friend Paul has come over here to talk to us a little bit about what they've got to show us this year at the show.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. We're excited to return to Ohio HD for the Gear Show. This year we decided to really focus on the Verano camera, since we have version 2 software coming out for the existing camera body. What's unique about that is it's going to really deliver to documentary filmmakers, cinematographers, cinema style, commercial style. So it's great to have one product that kind of jumps in multiple different genres. But also it's exciting this year that we're supporting firmware rollouts for existing cameras, like the FX6 or FX lineup, so we can support users that already have their cars. So it's a great year, and we're only looking towards the optimism that we are moving forward as an industry. It feels really good.
That's awesome. There's certainly been, some interesting times that we've all been kind of working with, but I mean the product line is great. I know there's so many people that we work with that just love everything about the Sony lines.
Gear Show guests. Our first panel will be starting in approximately 9 minutes.
We're excited to have you here. We'll check back later with more vendors throughout the day. We're going to be here till 7
the first panel will start in approximately 9
and we'd love to see you out at the Gear Show this year.
Hey, everybody, David here and
Vince Restivo.
Vince Restivo. Hey, we're just going to take a quick moment here. Feel free to keep milling around. Nobody needs to kind of come sit for this one. I just wanted to give a little bit of an update about what we're doing here at OHD so you could just kind of listen in the background as it's going on here. First of all, I want to say thanks, everybody, for coming out to Gear Show 2025 here at OHD Studios Columbus. This show is sponsored by Sony. We're here on the ARRI main stage, and the live stream is brought to you by Sigma. So I just want to start off a little bit state of the industry. So, Vince, what are you seeing right now? How are you feeling?
Crew sizes have definitely gotten smaller.
Yep.
Budgets seem to be clamping down. But I think that the state of the industry is good. I think more people than ever are interested in video production across the board, whether that be, your small independent, TikToks to full length features. The interest level couldn't be higher. So
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think even when we start to see it a little bit, we start to see production kind of returning a little bit. We kind of had a little bit of a slump. I feel like the phone's ringing more than it was. We don't get a lot into the movie side, but it does feel like our Kentucky office does, and they seem to be kind of pushing pretty hard right now. So, I think things are going along. AI hasn't replaced us yet, so I think
Absolutely
that's
not.
probably a good thing. One of the things I did notice, though, and maybe you keep buying stuff and you're building lights now,
yeah, a little bit.
but that gear acquisition syndrome is in full effect.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing, camera accessibility had a huge boom in the, early 2000s. The digital age kind of did ramp that up. I feel like the lighting aspect of things has kind of taken a little longer to get into that ramp up mode.
100%, yeah.
But currently there's, brand new technologies. It seems like the big trend right now is inflatables, whether that be large scale or smaller scale. People want to blow up their lights, which
Careful
is
now.
totally fine. It definitely creates a nice form factor package and,
Yeah.
and lightweight, which is always
And for those of
good
you
on the
kind of
knees
watching
and
around
back.
here in the building, and feel free to check out. There's lots of different options over in Studio A right now. We'll probably try to get some of those over here on video for the live stream as well. But there's tons of different options that I think are really interesting. And one of the things that you mentioned with that camera rollover that was happening is that camera thing, especially in the early 2000s. I was thinking about when I started. It was right around the time that the C300 kind of fell off. I was in college and the 5D came out and the Red came out and all that. But I really remember that C300 and then the Sony FS500, 700 series, F3, F55. The Alexa Classic was going strong, and then we had the Plus and the XT and the SXT and the Mini, and so it was just like this ramp of cameras that went happen. And now we're kind of, I don't want to say we're tailoring off, but we're definitely not seeing the major jumps, unlike the lighting industry, when I remember when an LED was like, oh no, it's green.
Yeah.
And now it's full colors of the rainbow with huge spectrums. One of the things that I thought was really interesting, so when I was getting ready to have this chat, I went back and I looked. I was like, what was the lifespan of an M18, right? So if you're not familiar, M18 is an ARRI HMI unit. It was basically the largest HMI you could fit on a 20 amp circuit. Still packs a huge punch, beautiful light.
Yeah.
It came out 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And what now we're seeing is
And the ARRI Sun before that.
and the ARRI Sun before that, the 12 worked forever, all the way back
Absolutely.
into magnetic ballasts and kind of back before that. But now you look at the lighting thing, and one of the things that was one of the big challengers to the M18, at least for us as a rental industry, was the 1200D Pro from Aperture. And I looked back at what that was going for. Well, the M18 when it was released was somewhere in the range of the 12,000 or so in 2009.
Yeah.
Head ballast. It kind of went up in price, especially as high-speed ballast came into play for that. But you look at an LS 1200D that does. It doesn't quite hit an M18,
Yeah.
but it does quite a bit of the work. For $3,400 2 years ago, it is now discontinued, which is crazy, right?
It's very quick.
It's very quick.
But I feel like the manufacturers they continue to improve on last year's model. They've discontinued the 12D with the 1200X's replacement. The features I've seen on that with their positive locking Bowens mount, which is amazing.
improved yoke,
Yeah.
which allows it to tilt and bend in all the ways we like, and the fact that they're listening to the feedback they're getting from their customers. They're making improvements, improved cables that they have on the 12, just you know night and day from where they were 5 years ago, 4 years ago.
And for me, it's a really interesting thing as we navigate as a rental house. One of those situations that we run across is like, what units should we be buying? Because there's tons of units, especially you go over there right now. You look at the Airstar balloon. I'm like, I want that. You look at Cream Source, and you're like, I want to be able to jam sync pulses into it and be able to change lighting that's happening. Sky Panel X's I think are really interesting. I love the Aperture line. Like, there's so many options out there. But one of the questions that I keep getting is, well, what is new at OHD? And it's like, well, you guys haven't really grown your inventory yet. And I'm like, I don't know where we're going to grow it yet. We're still waiting to figure out where people really want to see that kind of work. Because it's really hard to go and say, oh, we're going to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in a whole new lighting lineup for it to get to turned over, in 2 years at this point. So one of the things that I would say is, for those of you listening, I would love to hear your feedback. What things do you want in our inventory? What things is missing out of your lineup of stuff? I think that one of the things that I was thinking about is that Blair engine that's coming out from Aperture.
Yeah.
It's not the first person to have multi-LED kind of things that are happening. ETC has certainly done that from way back in the theatrical lighting side of it. A lot of different manufacturers are kind of coming up with that more than RGB, RGBW kind of lineup. So it's just another one of those opportunities for us to see that advancement in LED technology, and I think Aperture's doing a really nice job with that. But it's one of those where, is it enough to be able to replace an inventory yet? And I don't know. I think the only people that can answer that are the customers, the DPs, and the gaffers that are going out there and renting and working with that stuff. What do you think?
Absolutely. The fear when you're looking to purchase new products, or if you're buying for yourself, is that, am I going to buy something that's going to be not usable in 2 years, or outdated? One thing I will say, we still rent some of the old school tungsten lights. Like,
I mean, we pulled out
the
a tungsten
tried
kit
and
not too long
true
ago, right?
Old stuff it
Sometimes
still
you just need
works.
that little warm glow in the background. So
Yeah, the beautiful thing about G&E is that it usually has a lot longer shelf life, especially compared to like camera or audio equipment.
I don't know. There's some old mics that are there forever.
I mean, yeah,
forever.
but you're not plugging those old mics into a really old
No, you're
Mackie
probably
board
not.
or something like that.
Well, yeah. So anyway, I think that's a really interesting outlook on it. And one of the things that we always caution, and shameless plug is the rental house, come rent from us. But realistically, like, we know that people are going to buy gear, right? You should buy something that's going to be able to return at least 70% of what you're doing, right? There's no reason to rent something that's going to happen all the time, but we want to be there for that other 30%. And we'd like you to think about us in those situations, right? It's one of those situations where maybe you don't need 6 heads. Maybe you want to only buy 2, and you rent the other 4 for your next big job. So
Absolutely. When a bigger job comes down the line, it's important to have a good relationship with us rental folk, so that you can beef out your inventory, as opposed to just buying everything that you possibly can, whether you're going to need it or not. So.
And and I think that's true, especially as we have rental houses both here in Columbus, Ohio, and in Louisville, Kentucky. Those markets are very different that we're finding.
Absolutely.
Some of the stuff that we're getting asked for in Columbus are usually on the smaller truck size, maybe a 2-ton truck with some smaller lightings. FX6s are popular. On the camera side, you're definitely looking at G series glass for a lot of that stuff. And the requests that we're getting out of Kentucky are much more for the film. So we're seeing, Alexa Mini requests or Venice requests. We're seeing larger trucks. We've had multiple requests for 5 tons, which we don't carry at this point. But 3 tons certainly are moving down there. The dolly,
Absolutely.
I'd love to get our dolly back up here in Columbus someday, but I guess it just lives in Kentucky now, which is fantastic, because that means that community's getting it pretty well. And there's also other resources up here in Columbus, which haven't really existed down there in Louisville. So I'm happy to share the love down there. So
Absolutely. And I mean, I think when you think about your production, you kind of have to decide whether you go big and beefy, or if you want to go streamlined so you can be tight and nimble. So, like, no wrong answer on either one, but
yeah, I think it depends on the job, right? You don't need a 100-person crew to shoot a headshot, or
No.
maybe you do. I don't know. Depends on who's paying
Depends
the bill.
on who's the headshot for. So
So I think we could talk gear all day, you and I, but I do want to kind of just give a little bit more of an update and get us off the stage so people stop hearing us jab about ourselves a little bit. But some of the other things that have come down the line for us, I do want to point out, if you have not visited our website in the last, 3 days, you may find a brand new, shiny website.
Shiny and new.
Shiny and new. There's probably a bunch of errors on there, so feel free to let us know. But we are trying to make it so that it is more easily accessible for trying to figure out what's in our inventory, keep that more up to date, give us a chance to show more events that are happening in the community, and then hopefully my long-term goal for the year is to be able to kind of expand on our education series, be able to give more opportunities for people to learn about things that are going on, not only on the internet, the old YouTube University, if you will, but also in person for some of that stuff. We've got a few new units coming down the line. We've definitely heard the ADDs are the ADCs. Sorry, ADCs are coming down the line of things that are wanted. So we'll have a couple of those kind of added to inventory. We've definitely kind of upped our G series glass inventory. That seems to be a thing. One of the other ones that I'm really proud of, just because I'm a live stream nerd as well as a tech nerd and a virtual production guy and a robot guy. But we've added good Ultimat systems. So we did a show last November that really kind of expanded our virtual production offering. And I know some of your challenges obviously were lighting to a virtual environment as well as a physical environment on a green screen, live, multicammed, keyed, switched with Unreal. You pushed the team really hard, but it was one of those situations where I thought we did a really good job of meeting what the client's expectations were, and we got the opportunity to match a lot of our technologies on that one side. So if you have questions about what we did on that one, feel free to find one of the OHD members after the show or during the show after this thing, and we're happy to chat through some of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Let's also talk Kentucky, right? So Kentucky's been the thing that's been the talk of our big thing for the last few years at this point. It continues to grow. I think there's a lot of exciting things happening at our Kentucky location. We've added something a little bit slightly different than what's available here in Columbus. So we've offered the ability to have podcast studios, which we can certainly set up podcasts here in Columbus, but we've built a specific studio down there, lit it. There's mics, there's cameras, it's ready to go. It's plug and play podcast studio in Kentucky. We've also added some co-working space, some suites, some rental stuff for the building itself. I really think, and just like John was up here talking about film incentives in Ohio, the film incentives in Kentucky are also really interesting, and we've been continuing to work with those folks there to try to be able to create some really strong relationships there and continue to grow the film environment there. Aside from that, that's really the new for us, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think it has to be a ton of new stuff, but I do think that, one of the things that we're focused on are listening. What do our customers want? What do our customers need? What is the holes in the marketplace? Especially now that there's a fair amount of competition, not just in rental houses, but in owner-operators and in new vendor relationships, in the cost of gear coming down. So we really need to determine what works for our customers, what works for us, and kind of grow in that space. And aside from that, I think this year is going to be an interesting year. I'm looking forward to seeing what else.
I'm looking forward to this year.
I've got a few things up my sleeve that I'd love to go for, but I don't think it's quite prime time ready yet. So keep posted. We'll see if we can make some of those things happen, and we'll go from there. So with that, we want to turn it back over to the vendors here and the floor time. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, feel free to find an OHD staff member after this. We'd be love to answer your questions, love to give you some updates on the things that are going on. Again, Gear Show 2025 brought to you by Sony. We are here on the ARRI main stage. Live stream brought to you by Sigma. If you haven't found us yet, find us online at any of our socials at OHD Studios. As well as you can find us on our new website, www.ohdstudios.com. There's still time to come on out to Gear Show if you're in the Columbus area. We are running until, programming's running until about 6:45, 7 o'clock tonight, but I'm sure people will be hanging around for a little bit longer after. We'd love to see you there. We'll see you soon. Thanks.
Hey, we're excited to be back here on the trade show floor of the OHD Gear Show 2025. I am lucky, fortunate, blessed to be sitting here with Ryan Brown. He's with Canon, and they have some exciting products that they're out here demoing and kind of showing off and answering some questions about. So tell us what you brought.
So some of the new things that we have for this year, we have the C400 that we brought out here to show. The C400 is one of our cameras. It's triple base ISO, full frame, 6K. It's got a CNR, so the RF mount 35 is on here right now. Another one we brought out today is the C80, which is also full frame 6K. It has the new 24 to 105 2.8 on it with the power zoom adapter, so we can pull this and you have your white and telly there as well. The 70 to 200 2.8 that just came out as well comes in white and black. That can also take the same power zoom adapter, so we brought that out as well. So if you want to come down here and try some of these products, we've got a lot of things here ready for you. You can check it out and see what you think.
I am super excited to get my hands on this guy and this guy and check out all the stuff. So, man, we are going to be out here until about 7 o'clock tonight at OHD over here in Gahanna. We'd love to see you come on out. It's Gear Show 2025, and we can't wait to see you.